Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe SE-Talk und ich habe heute wieder ein klassisches Startinterview von einer Company, Meridian Mining. Der Gilbert Clark ist bei mir als Executive Chairman von dem Unternehmen und ich habe mir natürlich das Unternehmen vorher angeschaut, sonst wäre es ja gar nicht dazu gekommen, dass wir ein Interview heute haben. Aber im Prinzip weiß ich noch nicht allzu viel von dem Unternehmen, aber ich habe mir gedacht, das ist zumindest so spannend, dass wir auf jeden Fall mal drüber reden. Gilbert, thank you for your time. And I said in my German introduction, it's our first interview. So I have not too much clue about the company. So it's now up to you to yeah,
Give an
bring us
introduction.
yeah, and bring us your company and show us your company, and maybe we are so excited that we immediately buy. Then you do a really good job. When I look at the share price in the last 6 months, you have a really impressive performance. So from in November the low 10 cent and now 68 cents, so that's
Hmm.
a very good performance. So, from which or what are the major points why the share price is have a so good run?
Okay. Oh, thanks, Johan. Welcome. It's been a really interesting time for the company because what we did is I got brought into the company in 2018 by a private equity firm to do a restructure. I was one of the partners, and what I had was a company that had a false investment strategy, but a very good team. And one of my concerns always in Brazil is execution risk. I know they've got great geology, but how do we get these things done? So over the course of from June 2018 through to December 2019, I did a restructure of the company. And then that got the company focused back onto copper and gold and sort of away from peripheral minerals. And then the first half of last year, I then tackled the corporate and the balance sheet restructure because we had this terrible, they were both unbackable in the markets. And we did a balance sheet restructure that was very impressive. We converted a lot of debt into equity at a massive premium, so we didn't wreck our minority shareholders. And then we actually had the major shareholder who owned some 84% of the shares. I got him got them, the fund, to gift their shares back to the company. I cancelled them so just removed them from the capital table. And that then gave us a good exploration project at the time, a backable balance sheet. And we went out and raised the money. And then when I looked at that was in July last year. Then I looked at the time frame, because very much in the junior space, which is not where I'm really from. What they don't do very well, very professionally, is balance their equities, and that they don't understand risk in mining investments and the associated risk and timelines. So when I looked at our exploration project at the time called Espergon, I said, okay, to get the first significant results, it's not going to coincide with the free trading day of the shares. So we need another asset to incentivize our shareholders to continue to support us. And what I then did was I installed my new CEO, Dr. Adrian MacArthur, and I said to the team, go find me a good asset. And we had a fair few assets presented to us, and one just stood out called Cabasal. And I just said, look, stop everything. I almost ceased the exploration activities, focused on Cabasal, because what Cabasal presented to me was the perfect scenario. It was a discovery by BP Minerals, the oil giants mineral division in the 1980s. They brought it into production. They did a fantastic technical job of defining what they thought was a gold deposit on a belt scale, and looked along the belt for more gold, but didn't find any. They found a lot of copper, base metals. And then that got sold in 1989 to Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto acquired it as part of a global transaction for BP Minerals, which was principally the Kennecott deposit in America. So then they just said, look, this little 20,000 ounce per annum gold mine called Cabasal, which doesn't interest us. They brought in external counsel, and the external counsel said, hang on, stop. It's not a gold mine. You've actually got an entire VMS belt. And they said, is it going to produce as much per year as Kennecott, as Bingham Canyon? And I said, no, VMS aren't like that. And they said, well, too small. So in 1991, they shut down the mine. And all the data that was in paper format or very early stage digital databases just went into a cardboard box where it sat for 30 years. The project exchanged hands in the early 2000s to a small private co that we acquired the project of. But if you can imagine the work that was done by the oil majors back in the 1980s, 1970s, very much shapes today's mining industry. They amalgamated, they discovered, and they created. Then when the oil price rose, they said, not enough profits. They just dropped it. So what we got presented to was a project that has not been in the public markets for pre last mining boom. And this is what drove the mid-tier growth in the mining industry, in the mining boom. The majors kept their giant projects, and all the projects, mid-tier assets that they acquired from the oil majors, because they bought them all, they sold. And companies like Teck or Lundin or Anglo American, which are really the mid-tiers, they bought them. And what I had in this small junior company is a mid-tier asset, which is quite remarkable. And what we're doing over the last 6 months is bringing into the investor, both the retail, the high net worth, and the institutional investors, this concept of where I come from private equity and mining, of not risking your equities, not risking your deployment of your capital and your exploration program, but focusing on an asset that at a belt scale has been de-risked. And the people going, yeah, but why has it not been developed? Well, principally because it's been in an undercapitalized private co for the last, probably the last 16 years. And the previous 14 years before that, it was just a archived asset within the giant Rio Tinto's portfolio. So now we've got it, and we've started to drill, and the results have been pretty good. It's sort of hard to sort of contemplate it sometimes that the market says, oh wow, you've just drilled 58 meters at 1.2% copper equivalent, and I go, yeah, but we knew we were going to drill that because we just here's BP hole number 100. We'll just drill next to it. And they got 59 meters at 1.15. We got 58 meters at 1.2% copper equivalent. And we've got in that deposit, that one deposit, we've got 400 drill holes like this. So what that means to the investor is when BP and Rio Tinto are operating the mine, they just mine very small, high-grade gold veins. The big envelope, the tens and tens of millions of tons of mineralization, copper gold mineralization, remains in situ. The limits, or the known limits, have been defined, but they've not been closed. So it just presents a wonderful scenario. And then what we've done on top of that is in 2007, the vendors who we acquired the project from, they flew airborne geophysics. They're undercapitalized. They had to get a partner in 2009 and they're looking for gold, to treat the data. And what we now see is our soil anomalies, drilling coincides along a structural trend of some central structural trend of about 14 kilometers. Remember, we've got 36 kilometers and the main central core is 14 kilometers called the mine corridor. We've got drilling, we've got soil anomalies, and we've got down plunge electromagnetic conductive plates, which is sort of like your textbook resource development model for our deposit, which is a volcanic massive sulfide deposit. And they're not new, these are known throughout the world. And what they are, VMS deposits, and this is being researched, this Flin Flon, Snow Lake, any of these deposits, they're multi-decade producing assets that are low capex, low opex, delivering free cash flow decade after decade after decade. And prime example is Hud Bay. It used to be called Hud Bay Mining and Metallurgy, incorporated, I think, 1922, 23, to develop the Flin Flon VMS deposit. And 100 years later, that company's still going. So this is what we've got the potential to grow into. We're going to grow into a mid-tier production company. asset was defined, de-risked by an oil major. It disappeared from the markets. And one of the most interesting things about this disappearing is when I went to do the research, I did the standard modern research by looking at the internet. Research, couldn't find anything. No data. Because the data associated with this project was never put into a numeric format. Mm-hmm. So it can never be brought into the internet. There was a couple of PhD papers out there very interesting. So, it was just this fantastic scenario for us. Mm-hmm. And then, this is what I'm getting to about risk. I don't want to risk my investors' equity or their capital.
Okay. So to go a little bit deeper, well, I see it on page 4. You write that over 600 historical drill holes are drilled, 70,000 meters. So it's. Do you have any clue? You said you have all this data from Rio Tinto. You have all this.
Yeah, we've actually got more data than that. We've also got the couple of thousand kilometers of geophysics. We've also got underground fan drilling that actually came out of the database. The vendors never had that. Some of the assay data we won't be able to use. It's not really in a compliant format. Other data, like we've recovered the old core from the university. We're reassaying that.
Do you have also access to the old core?
Yeah, no, we're actually finishing up our reassaying. Not all of it. There was a selection at the University of Cuiabá, the Federal University, and we did a fantastic idea. We did an exchange of, it's really the basis of Australia's mining industry and Canada's mining industry. So we incentivized the university to become involved in the project. Like we'll take their students and we've got access to their data. So that's the incentive. The tertiary incentivization is quite important in any industry. Mm-hmm. So we've got that information, yeah. And that's one of the key bits of information that we got was the metallurgy. And a lot of people, you'll see a lot of projects and we've got the previous vendor did this, the next vendor did this, test. And they can never, and the reason they do that in these projects, and I'm playing this from 25 years experience, it's because they're never going to work. What we had is production data. Mm-hmm. So we had the last 12 months of metallurgical data from when they were producing. And we know that it's almost top percentile VMS metallurgy. We're going to get plus 94% recovery on the copper. I'm fairly certain we're going to get plus 93% on the gold because they were using a very simple gold gravity circuit and we're going to use quite a modern one. But it's not really modern, it's a Nelson concentrator, it's just industrial technology. Mm-hmm. And we get high silver, like 86% silver. So that's very important for us. And one thing people ask me often is, you're in Brazil, what's the NGO risk? What's your execution to deployment risk? Well, we're in Mato Grosso on the southern historical limit of influence of the Amazon jungle. We're not bulldozing Amazon jungle. We're in pastoral land. Maybe this was logged 100 years ago. We've got stable farming communities that want us to come back because they can remember when the mines were operating. It's, we had jobs, we're going to start. So I don't have NGO risk because I'm not bulldozing the rainforest. I'm not going into the Brazilian Indian reservations. We don't have those. I don't have a local community against mining because they actually remember the wealth and the increase the living standards that the mining jobs provided. So it's really positive for us in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. So, but going a little bit deeper, what is now really the plan? It looks like when I look at the data, Rio Tinto go only for the high grade ore shoots, I must say. And we know also VMS deposits have a lot of shoots, different shoots, with all of flim foam and so on. And they have between 5 and 40 normally, these different ore shoots. But when you look also the data and see this historical resource that is also 0.6 gram copper is very good number and so on. So what is the strategy? Do you go for a open pit bulk tonnage scenario, or you go also more for the narrow veins with high grades?
This will be a production mine, and the ore body basically subcrops its surface. Mm-hmm. What's important about that aspect, again, this is a lot of the things never get communicated to investors because often the companies don't want you to know, but we go into fresh crystalline rock after 20 meters. Okay, so what that means, after 20 meters, you get 94% recovery of your copper. Because if you've got a big oxide depleted zone, okay, low grade, you just can't float it. You can try and heat leach it, but you don't have the tonnages to do that. So this is the geometry of this deposit. It's flat line from surface, dipping about 30 degrees to surface. It's made up of three layers of mineralization. They can be average around 25 meters in thickness, and they can be cumulatively up to 100 meters in thickness. So this is a bulk mining operation. Unlike a lot of juniors, again, this is the thing that you got to understand, that I'm sort of 15 years out of private equity evaluating these companies, and you can sort of, a lot of things popping up in the market today saying this is the next best thing I've already dismissed 10 years ago as not viable. Kind of a bit frustrating. Companies say VMS projects, the amount of capex you're going to need to bring them in. Okay, when you say capex, that's to buy the ground, build the plant, pre-strip with a very small pre-strip, sustaining capital to get cash flow positive. For a VMS deposit, it's not a lot of money in the grander sense of things. You know, you might get total capex bill of this sort of 300 to 330, that type of range. And that's well within the capacity of an emerging mid-tier company to project finance, be that 60% debt, 40% equity. It's not hard to do. If we were trying to develop a billion-ton porphyry, then our capex is going to be $2 or $3 billion. And there's no way we could ever build it. And it's absolute certainty on the project financing that the shareholders at equity would just get whacked and diluted out. So they have to sell, and they never get any real benefit. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on Cabasal, drill up an open pit resource, do the optimization, design the open pit, permit it. We're doing our baseline studies. We're actually initiating our baseline studies, environmental engineering this month, and then we'll go and build it. And the board, our board, has actually got the skill sets and the experience and the negotiation and the banking and equity sector contacts to actually finance it. So it's a really interesting scenario. And one of the other things that, again, makes it an attractive, Meridian quite an attractive investment is that this is just one, like you said before, this is just one of our deposits. We've identified, just in sort of regional scale, 7 other prospects. One of them is actually a conductive zone 4 kilometers long. And the work that we've done on Cabasal to focus on our drilling, we've gone from having it, say, 1.8 kilometers now long. But now, through geophysics, integration of the historical data, that's now extended out to 3.7 kilometer zone of hydrothermal alteration with mineralization. So we've really got something quite large here. So that's our plan. It's not, we don't take risks with equities. Okay, we grow our equities. I had a very famous conversation start of the year with a very nice, very experienced investor actually, and he'd seen it all before like I had, and he said, "Look, I like your project, but I'm going to wait for your equities to come back, and then I'll buy." And I made it really just what I do. I said, "The shareholders of this company don't employ me to see the equities go down; they employ me to see the equities go up." Mm-hmm. So you make the correct decision for the long term, and you grow your equities. Mm-hmm. It's a funny little company, this one, because you look at the quality of the board, the execution team in Brazil. We're all out of I was part of a multi-billion-dollar fund, as were some of my colleagues are in this company, the directors, experienced banking, experienced commodity traders. And the team in Brazil sort of varies between guys who work for the majors or the mid-tiers. So this project is just perfect for us. Perfect for our shareholders in the aspect of how to fund it, but also the wealth possibility of creation that it presents. I haven't seen anything like this. Last time I saw assets like this come into the market, two things happened. Back in 2003, it's when Rio started selling a fair bit of assets, and majors like BP did the same. They Zinkgruvan, Novoskovo, they got spun out, mid-tier assets. more critically, the last really period when we saw quality assets like this come into the markets when they broke up Outokumpu, disaster for the Finns, but an unbelievable opportunity for the mining industry. But now those quality assets are mature. They have closure liabilities associated with them. What Meridian has is a mid-tier camp scale asset. Mm-hmm. Everything's at surface. So Laron VMS gold mines at 3,000 meters deep. We're 20 meters deep. Mm-hmm. And we don't have any closure liabilities. Mm-hmm. Really interesting scenario.
Okay. For the next or the drill program, what they already run, how many meters you will drill?
Well, this current program is 10,000 meters.
Okay. And is this enough to get a resource calculation on the end?
No problem at all. But the problem that you have, and something that junior companies error in doing, is this won't be closed off after a 10,000 meter program. We're going to put 8,000 meters into Cabasal, that old gold mine, copper gold mine. That's not going to close it off. We're going to put 2,000 meters into the regional targets, and it's our estimation that this will be drilled for. We'll continue drilling into the year.
That brings us to the cash position. Drilling cost, exploration cost money.
No.
So and how much money you will spend now, or and your presentation looks like that you have 4.5 million cash on and this was back to 31st of December. So so how you will finance all this exploration? Then then you need your resource calculation, your pre-feasibility study, and so on.
Well, we'll go back to the markets, of course. When we got the asset, the last two financings, July and June, they were retail driven, very successful retail driven financings. But it became apparent that we were going to have to modify and manage our balance sheet, our capital table, to get more institutional investors. A lot of the investors currently are high net worths. What we had to do is grow our institutional interest. So we started doing quite detailed presentations, more detailed than you generally see in a press release or in a presentation, and very clear communication with our supporters. And what that's allowed is they've seen the growth. They've understand what I'm getting at about risk associated with the equities and how we're not taking risk with the equities, how we don't take risk when we deploy our capital. And they're very supportive. So we've had quite a significant amount of warrants converted in the last ongoing conversion of warrants. And we're probably in a better financial situation today with cash on hand, which I think is probably over 5 million Canadian now than we did at the start of the year.
Okay.
And what we'll do, we'll go back to the markets at some point in the future.
Okay.
And we've been working with a lot of really good groups out of Canada and the UK, specialist merchant banks for mining and generalist guys. A lot of our presentations the last couple of weeks have been really to the institutional market. And what's kind of interesting in these presentations is it's not so much CEO chatting up his project. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go here. We've got this. The commodity prices are going up. A lot of the discussions we've been having with these funds are quite interesting because it's almost like a fund-to-fund discussion.
Okay.
What's this risk? Well, this is why we abated this risk. What's this return? Well, what I say to them is what Meridian's presenting to you, the institutions, is institutions generally come in at a much higher share price, $2-3, because then that risk associated with their investment has been abated by the previous investment. So they know their invested capital is safe. And that's why they invest, because it's got so much data that de-risks it, all data, environmental, metallurgical, geological, geophysical. And what I'm saying to them with respect to Meridian is I'm presenting an opportunity with institutions to come in at the same potential equity multiple as a greenfields discovery, yet you're using production scale risk information. And that doesn't exist. And it's so, even the smaller shareholders, when I sort of go through and tell them what we're doing, again, oh, okay, we never been taught to this. I said, no, because this is not what the typical junior Canadian or Australian or United Kingdom small cap junior talks about. All they talk about is upside, upside, upside. They don't understand that, okay, your investors are putting money into the company. You got to grow their equities and manage their capital.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are close to, or we are over 25 minutes now from the interview. Time is flying. What are the major, or what do you think are the major three news what we can expect from the company in the next 6 months?
Well, we'll have. We've acquired our own EM equipment, electromagnetic survey equipment, because in the project, you can see in the presentation, we have a lot of EM plates. What you do is they're airborne EM plates. We'll go down to a ground-based EM survey and then a downhole EM survey. We know this is very successful. We trialed it in the first phase of the program. Just works fantastic, but the contractor's equipment was 25 years old and it's limited in the range of where it can see. So we've bought our own equipment. It's actually in transit to Brazil now. So you expect to see some quite interesting geophysics coming out, surface geophysics. Mm-hmm. Then you'll see downhole geophysics and you'll see drill results. That's one aspect of the news flow. The next aspect will be assays. And we'll say, okay, look, this is from the Eastern Copper Zone, as expected. This is from the Central Copper Zone, as expected. This is from the Southern Copper Zone. These are the three zones that are within the deposit. And it's kind of boring, but this is what. But you got to understand that we don't take risk. You don't want to take risks with the investors' money. And I had limited partners, LPs, and I spent a lot of time protecting their money. So you don't take risks. You want to retain your capital, grow your equities. It's very clear. So that's what we're doing. That's the second part. The third part is that in the information that was given to us by Rio Tinto when they gave us this database dump, we got the regional programs of BP minerals in the 1980s. And we have secured, I think it's 480 square kilometres. No, actually, in total, it's about 580, but these two other greenstone belts are about 480 contiguous tenements that is being at a tertiary stage of exploration, geophysics, stream sediment sampling, soil sampling, drilling, and within these belts, contiguously. And it is impossible to do that in Canada or Australia to get such a fantastic amount of land at a very low holding cost. So it'll be interesting to start bringing some of that historical information into the market, because where we are, Mato Grosso, it is a defined metallogenic province with the Cabasel project. That's clear. There's no doubting on that. But what we're looking at now is we're re-emerging a mineral province, and Meridian has very carefully, very methodically become the dominant landowner. So we're a very interesting company.
Mm-hmm. Gilbert, thank you for the first introduction to your company. Hopefully we have to change maybe in 3 or 4 months or 6 months. I don't know when is the best time that we talk again to recap all the information what you will generate the next few months. Then you're starting now with the real results. They're coming out, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago with the first real results, and it looks very great. And the good thing is you have a lot of data, so you re-drill this kind of stuff, and you get all this, and you know exactly where you must drill. So that is very, very positive. So you know exactly what it will come out in this drill campaign, beside the new area where what you find out that is maybe new targets. Ja, very interesting. Ja, das war jetzt eine erste Interview vom Meridian Mining und er hat es relativ gut erklärt. Also es ist eine alte bestehende Mine, die kommt von PP Minerals, das hat es damals gegeben. PP Minerals also nicht, PP hat nicht nur Öl gemacht, sondern auch in Rohstoffe, hat es dann allerdings verkauft, weil sie mit dem Öl mehr Geld verdient haben, an Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto hat dort dann 4 Jahre lang Gold produziert, weil sie auf diese hochgradigen Gold Shoots sich fokussiert haben bis 1991 dort Gold produziert. Mit 5 Gramm Gold und 0,82 Kupfer. Aber in Wirklichkeit ist es eigentlich mehr ein Kupferprojekt, das zwar niedriggehaltener ist, also alles Open Pit, also es ist alles das geht nicht wirklich tief oder man weiß noch nicht, wie tief es geht, aber die Bohrungen, was sie bis jetzt haben, sind alle sehr oberflächennahe und die kommen teilweise mit unglaublichen Gehalten. Man sieht es hier teilweise hochgradig 15,9 Meter mit 4 Gramm Kupferäquivalent. 58 Meter mit 1,2 Kupferäquivalent. Das sind echt hochgradige Sachen. Und ein Ziel ist halt einfach, erstens einmal ist das Ganze ein VMS-Deposit. Und VMS-Deposits wissen wir, die kommen nicht immer alleine, sondern das sind so Cluster von Projekten, von mineralisierten Zonen, die von 5 bis 40 gehen. Da gibt es normalerweise, sind alle relativ hochgradig, das ist auch schon, zwar nicht alle riesig, aber ergeben ein riesenlanges Minenleben. Er hat da unten eine schöne Grafik drin gehabt. Flimflon ist zum Beispiel einer der bekanntesten hochgradigen VMS-Deposits. Die haben also über 50, 60 Jahre lang, 80 Jahre lang dort dran gearbeitet. Und sie sagt, sie haben eine genauso interessierte Mineralisierungszone, die wurde vorher nicht erkannt und jetzt haben aber riesentolle Datenbank, über 600 Bohrlöcher da, sie wissen, wo sie bohren müssen, sie wissen, welche Gehalte sie rausbekommen und ihr Ziel ist es einfach, einen Mid-Tier-Producer draus zu werden. Das ist ein perfektes Projekt für einen Mid-Tier-Producer, wo sie Jahrzehnte lang bohren können und also arbeiten können. Sie wissen alle Bohrdaten, sie wissen alle die Metallurgie, sie wissen die Produktionsdaten, sie wissen, wie die Recovery war. Das heißt, das Risiko wurde sehr, sehr stark reduziert. Das ist das Einzige, das ist einmal von dem Projekt. Also riesig groß, VMS, brauchen nur nachbohren. Das ist also nicht wirklich ein großes Risiko von der geologischen Seite und auch von der metallurgischen Seite. Was das Projekt allerdings auch wirklich spannend macht, ist eher ein Background. Das sind nicht die typischen Geologen, die losgehen und ein Projekt aufsetzen, sondern sie kommen eigentlich mehr von der Kapitalseite, Fondsmanagerseite und so weiter. Und sie wissen, wie sie einfach ein Projekt strukturieren müssen. Sie wissen auch, sie wollen einfach Kohle verdienen, sie wollen Equity, sie wollen einfach ihr Equity erhöhen und Geld verdienen, auf gut Deutsch. Das ist einfach jetzt ein klares Ziel. Sie wollen jetzt bohren. Ich habe ja gefragt, was sind so die 3 Major-Treiber für die nächsten 3 bis 6 Monate. Das sind natürlich Bohren, das sind eher geophysischen Daten, was sie machen. Das sind dann die Analysenergebnisse, die rauskommen natürlich aus den Bohrungen, und es sind aber auch, sie haben sehr viel mehr Land. Sie haben jetzt alleine das 2 andere Greenstone Bells, wo sie auch mit Geophysik und anfangen zu arbeiten, damit sie auch das Potenzial zeigen kann, wie groß es ist. Er hat auch so zwischendurch einmal erwähnt, sie wollen nicht noch die Porphyries suchen, weil die kosten in der Entwicklung so bis 3 Milliarden, das ist uninteressant für einer. Sie wollen eben so ein Mid-Tier-Projekt haben, das in der Entwicklung 3 bis 400 Millionen kostet, also CapEx-Kosten, und das ist auch für Erna machbar, es aufzustellen. Wenn die Daten allerdings so gut sind und sie auch das weiter bestehen können, dann würde ich sagen, wird es zu dem Leben mal kommen, weil es wahrscheinlich eher die Firma vorher übernommen wird. Aber sie planen einfach jetzt schon Richtung Produktion, sie fangen auch jetzt schon mit den Umweltstudien und so weiter an, die sollen in diesem Monat starten, weil das braucht einfach sehr Zeit, bis dass man dann die Genehmigung dementsprechend kommt. One question coming to my mind, but when a bigger company is coming, you're coming up with a really great results for the next. We expect to coming up with great results. You get more excitement in the market. The story is now maybe well known. Now it's really nobody knows about the story. What is or how big is the chance that a bigger company coming and say, I like this project and I will join you as a partner, or I will take over this project? Is there how big you think is the chance for this?
That's a good question. I think about that one a lot. With JV projects, JV you then go on to the schedule of a JV partner, and then you become into the hierarchy of their projects and how they want the projects to go advance. So often what happens in that aspect is you have a schedule of equity growth or growth in value to replicate in our equities that might be out of sync with the JV partners. They might want to take it easy over 5-10 years, but we said no, we want to build. So that's, it's a JV partner, and give away project equity is something you don't want to do. Company equity, a strategic partner, be that industrial, financial, that's another situation. In respect of the takeover, this is one of the really very interesting things, because Brazil's been quite active in mergers and acquisition of late. What in that aspect, the merger and acquisition, we're presenting a pretty much an entire secure province of metals, with no historical mining liability associated with it that would have to be transferred onto the balance sheet of an acquirer, with a potentially a multi-decade production history going forward with positive cash flows, low capex. And that is a fantastic scenario. Now, the downside for an acquirer in that project is I very much know what the cost of these things are. And if any event like that was ever to happen, I'd extract the maximum value for our shareholders. Because I'm not a junior company that's sort of handled or dealt in, nor is our board group of individuals that have sort of sat around and been in the small cap space with the small amounts of available capital. We've actually come from managed funds, and our shareholders in those managed funds were sovereign funds, pension funds, and I know what their expectations are on return, and this is the same when they are my shareholders. Well, I'm replicating their expectation on return to my shareholders in Meridian. So no, it's not going to be a flip. We're not going to sell this cheaply. If we were to develop and take it down the road and de-risk it with permits, and there was a company who was interested to acquire us, when they would have to pay full value of the long-term potential this company presents.
Yeah.
It's an interesting company.
Yeah. But in the end, it's always a question of the price.
It's personal. Well, the best time when I was with the fund, the best the fund ever did was, I think they did like a 64 times multiple on first investment in a company. The first time I did a capital raise, and this one was 7.5 cent capital raise. My view is I should be able to really annoy my ex-colleagues by doing a better return.
Okay. Ja, da hat also wie gesagt, Übernahme ist natürlich immer auch möglich. Er will den Preis natürlich maximieren. Joint Venture glaubt er weniger dran, weil es muss einfach perfekt dazu passen. Die Partnerschaft muss einfach gut passen. Und das Timing muss auch gut passen. Also es müssen beide an derselben Zeitachse sein. Nicht, dass der eine sagt, ich will eigentlich erst in 15 Jahren und deswegen lassen wir das jetzt so dahin plätschern. Wird ja auch in 15 Jahren auch was. Sondern einer ist halt einfach es schneller und richtig und schnell und auch in Produktion zu bringen. Und deswegen glaubt er eher weniger an Joint Venture. Übernahmen ist natürlich immer so das Thema. Sein Thema ist es allerdings, und er kommt ja von der Fondsseite, Maximum optimale für seine Aktionäre rauszuholen. Das ist das Key überhaupt, also das Beste für seine Aktionäre. Ja, und das war es eigentlich von Meridian Mining. Heute ist 1. Juni 2021 und ja, schauen wir mal, was die Aktie macht. Bis jetzt eine hervorragende Performance und jetzt kommen die ganzen Bohrergebnisse, also da wird sicher nur ein paar spannende Zeiten auf uns zukommen. Gilbert, thank you for your time. Thank you for the first introduction to your company, and good luck with all the drilling, all the geophysics and so on. I don't think that this is really a big problem. Then you have a lot of old results, and you must twins the most drill holes, so you know exactly what it's come out.
Yeah, look, there's an information button, contact on the Meridian website. I think it's info@meridian.mining.co. There's a link. That actually comes to me, so if anyone's got an inquiry, just send me a note.
Okay, perfect.
I'm in Nizza, so I'm on the same time zone too, so if you want to have a chat, just give me a call.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Thank you for your time, and good luck, and see you next time. Hopefully, maybe then in person by some of the conferences.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.